everybody, it's Stewart A. Swerdlow.
And Janet Diane Moya Swerdlow.
Look who's back.
Finally.
Oh, I'm so relieved.
You
It was
are.
so lonely without you.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, what was your name again? Yeah.
I'm so touched.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you had better not been. Anyway, this is the Expansions News Podcast for the last week of June 2016. Half the year is over. Holy cannolis. Well, where do I begin? Well, let's start with the big story of Europe and the UK and the EU and blah, blah, blah. Well, you know that Britain voted to exit the EU, which in my opinion they weren't really in it anyway. They didn't sign the Schengen Agreement, they didn't use the euro, they didn't use many of the rules and regulations. So they were kind of like in it with their little pinky. So I don't know what the big fuss is on the news about it. But because of their exit from the EU, the Scottish people, especially the Scottish Independence Movement First Minister, I believe she's First Minister, by the name of Nicola Sturgeon, she says that Scotland has voted unequivocally to stay in the EU, and therefore this event gives her the mandate for a second referendum for Scotland to become independent, because Scotland now faces being taken out of the EU against their will. And so she is going to ask all 32 local authorities in Scotland to vote to stay in the European Union and remove themselves from the British Empire, which is not really an empire anymore. Anyway, and in Northern Ireland, Irish Republicans can use this result to call for a reunification of Ireland. So, looks like it's the end of Great Britain, eh?
That's Canada.
Yeah. Now, Miss Sturgeon said the Scottish government will begin to prepare a legislation to enable a second independence referendum to take place, and she said it was inconceivable that the UK government could stop it. But it goes beyond Scotland, because now voters in Sweden, Denmark, and Greece said that they're ready to leave EU as well. They don't like it there. And the Swedes and the Greeks speak of a chance to break away. In Greece, they said it's easy to follow Britain and walk away from the EU. And it was said that the European Union is not a union anymore. Well, quite honestly, it never really was. It was just a fake conglomeration of people who hated each other thrown together. And in Greece, they said it's just a couple of rich countries trying to get everything they can from the poor ones. That's true. And they don't believe the Greek government will ever take the leap and leave the EU because they're terrified. And that's very sad, because Greece is being abused by the rest of the EU. And it also said that there's a democratic deficit, and here's what I said all along. No one votes for the people in power. And that's what I've told. Now they're starting to realize this. And in France, they said, if there was a referendum on leaving the EU in France today, the people would vote to leave. So nobody wants to be in it.
Well, the people don't. That's different than the leadership, obviously.
So remember what I said, people. I said that the EU leaders, that you don't vote for the ones who make your legislation. Everywhere I've gone in Europe, nobody likes the EU. They all want Putin to take power, as a matter of fact, and that's the truth. And the EU leaders are so upset with Britain that they told the UK to leave now. Don't take their time. You can have up to 2 years to leave. They said, just go. It's like they're a jilted lover. It's like, oh, you cheated on me? Get the frick out. Leave today. But here's what I had said, and I don't know where I said it. Maybe you will remember. Maybe I wrote it somewhere, but a long time ago I said that the UK would join with North American Union.
I remember you saying that.
With English-speaking countries joining together. So it would be UK, Canada, United States, and even Australia and New Zealand, who already kind of joined together. And I think that is what we're going to see.
Yeah, no, I remember when you said that.
Yeah, so that's what I think will happen. Now, let's go to North America. It's a very scary situation here because according to some scientists, the clock is ticking for a megaquake in Missouri.
But they've been talking about that for a long time.
That could cause all hell to break loose across Middle America. That's where we live. And it said it's called the New Madrid seismic zone, is 150 miles long. And it said while the San Andreas and Cascadia are well known for their potential to cause a megaquake, researchers have warned the little known fault in the Midwest is also long overdue for a tremor. Now, we have had earthquakes here. Remember the one we had last year was the biggest one in Michigan history. Were you scared? No, because you didn't even know. You were like, oh, what was that? Anyway, and Jonathan was like, everything's shaking. Anyway, this area hasn't had a significant earthquake for more than 200 years, when you might remember, being the vampire that you are, in the winter of 1811 and 1812, there were 3 earthquakes of greater than magnitude 7.7, and a series of aftershocks across the American Midwest. Actually, there were over 8 on the Richter scale. And as a result, the course of the Mississippi River was diverted, chasms ripped open, and volcanoes of sand and water burst through the ground. Do you remember that? It was very scary. And according to the Central U.S. Earthquake Consortium, earthquakes in the central or eastern U.S. affect much larger areas than earthquakes of a similar magnitude in your homeland in the western United States. And they said an earthquake could hit the Mississippi Valley at any time. Now, we are not in the Mississippi Valley. We're in the Great Lakes area, but we feel those earthquakes.
We would feel it.
We do feel those earthquakes.
They've been talking about this one for years, so I think that the whole U.S. is positioning itself for earthquakes.
But I have to just say one more thing, and this was concerning me while you were away, because just the day before you were coming home, there was a story on the news that the Hekla volcano in Iceland was about to go off, and it hasn't gone off for 16 years, and usually it goes out every 10 years, so it's overdue. And so when Hekla and Katla are the twin volcanoes in Iceland, they call the evil sisters, because the last time when they erupt, everybody dies, and it was going to disrupt air traffic between North America and Europe. And I thought, they better not do that before Janet gets home. So now that you're here, Hekla may go on.
I don't have the mind pattern for that to happen.
No, but I do.
I know. So, you're up to me?
Back to, you know why? I missed you so much, I want you to go on.
Yeah. Well, you see...
Okay, back to me. Anyway, people... No, I'm serious. Go on. Go ahead.
So, anyway, I do have some stories that I collected either while I was away, just before I left, or just since I got home. So they're in
you've been busy.
In no particular order, because I've only been home a couple of days. So I don't have as much as I usually have, but I do have some entertaining stories for you, hopefully. The first one, unfortunately, is a little on the tragic side, so we'll talk about that one and get it out first.
Go on.
That there was a Phoenix mother of 3 who was high on spice legal marijuana, which is...
What is that?
It's a synthetic marijuana, which is legal.
It's legal?
Yes. Spice legal marijuana, which is synthetic. Apparently, this woman lost control and killed her 3 sons before trying to end her own life, and the oldest was 5 of her children.
They make this legal.
Her name was Octavia, which Octavia has...
8.
Yes, it has to do with 8. So I do feel it was a ritual sacrifice, and again, like we continue to tell you, these drugs are not good, whether they're legal, illegal, anything that affects your mind. You know, really do your hyperspace oversoul work. You don't need these things, and that's why I'm bringing this forward, because it's as synthetic, which is bad. So, and then the other thing is just...
But look at her initials are OR, operating room.
That's it is. Then this is something that you and I have talked about for many years. I've talked about it long before I knew you, that there is cellular memory in each and every cell of your body.
Well, duh.
Now it says that organ transplants are proving that major organs may have self-contained brains.
I spoke about that many times.
May have self-contained brains. It says that we've talked about people who've had the organ transplants.
Right, and they have the memories of the people.
Yes, so I can't see you.
What?
I can't see you. You're behind me.
Don't talk about my behind.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about your behind. Anyway,
That's
so...
a beautiful behind. I will show you if you pay me.
Yeah, don't. Anyway, so we have talked about how cellular memory is stored in each and every cell and how each and every cell collects information and feeds it to the brain. And now they're proving this through the organ transplants, and they're specifically targeting heart transplants because people who have their hearts transplanted, then they all of a sudden develop strange cravings, taste, personality changes, and so forth.
And also emotional object of love. Yes.
So now the scientists are saying that in smaller transplants such as corneas, because they don't contain so many neurons, they don't have brains, but the large ones do. But I will tell you that every cell collects information, and if just simply because people may not be aware, because it is a smaller organ that's being put into their body, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
Right.
So anyway, keep your eyes open for this, but this proves what we have been saying. I long before you, and you as long as I've known you. So, and then I also told you about all the underground treasures and information that's being revealed in my last podcast before I left. I gave a whole bunch of it. This was one that I wanted to tell you about that I forgot in some way or another, but in Spain there was a cave art trove that was found 1,000 feet underground, and the Spanish archaeologists say that this is an exceptional set of Paleolithic era cave drawings that could rank among the best in a country that already boasts some of the world's most important cave art.
Even more than the ones in France?
Well, that's what it's saying. It's saying the access to the area is so dangerous it's not likely to be open to the public. Well, as you know, once they find things that are of significance,
they don't tell anyone.
Right, they just close it off. We don't know how far below the ground is, but they're not going to let people. Probably has
pictures of aliens in it.
And then this was a collection of stories that I found, which was interesting because as we get into the changing times, we have more reference to dragons and reptilians and so on and so forth, and they begin imprinting the public. So the public is more accepting of these things. So, and of course we're now in the U.S. in the midst of this gender fluidity, transgender, whatever it is, situation we have going on with the sexuality of the people here. So we have a super female bearded dragon, more male than male. Now does that sound confusing or what?
Yeah.
It says that the females are born with male chromosomes, but can lay eggs. So then it says, when is a female, when is a male? These are the questions that scientists continue to ponder after the latest research on an Australian lizard that reverses its sex when exposed to high incubation temperatures.
Really?
Central bearded dragons are born with male chromosomes but can lay eggs and have other strange characteristics.
Do they wear dresses?
They behave like super females, laying more eggs than the standard female, but are also bolder and more active than males. And then it says that they determine this by blood samples taken from their tails and their actual sex as determined by their size, behavior, and gonads.
Define tails?
And that is compared to their genetic sex. And it says male bearded dragons usually have 2 Z chromosomes.
A Z?
And females usually have a Z and a W. However, it says 11 of the dragons were sex-reversed females. In other words, females with ZZ chromosomes. And these look more like males than females.
I know people like that.
Well, this is, I think, the point. That when we're starting to talk about now children can choose their sex, they're saying that you really don't have a sex.
5 years old, they're allowed to do that.
Well, I have more stories about that, too.
Oh, you do?
I do. And just so you know, because this has to do with things that are underground, there are now more glowing fish in the sea than previously thought.
How come?
Well, because they are doing new studies and they're going deeper down, and now they're finding more glowing fish.
Because of radiation?
They just are saying there are more glowing fish than they previously thought. And there is a glowing shark who wears a cloak of invisibility as a result of all this glowing in undersea.
I want to see that one.
So here we have, again, invisibility. We have cloak. Again, everything under the ocean.
A cloak of invisibility.
And now this is going to interest you.